Coming to you from a portable microphone, this is Don't Get Me Started. This is a conversation about advertising. And here is your host, freelance creative director and creative circus department head, Dan Balser.
Yes, welcome back to another episode of the podcast. And this is going to be, let me just say before we start, this is exciting for me. This is sort of like getting that date with your crush. This is going to be a conversation that I hope lives up to the brain crush that I've had on Zach since he first came to the school to speak at an advisory board meeting. And I normally start these things off. If you're a longtime listener, you know I'll just kind of go off on whatever I'm thinking about. What I'm thinking about is that I hope I can milk enough out of Zach's brain that you guys are going to get something out of this, because Zach is a thoughtful, well-seasoned, intelligent, observant, compassionate, and empathetic creative recruiter who understands the nuances, the needs of the industry, and I think the state of mind that young people have, or all people have, coming into and working in this industry. And I got a little affirmative yet tentative nod from him when he heard me say that. I know it must be odd in his chair hearing me talk about him in the third person as he sits less than a foot away from me. Zach is currently, as you know, Associate Partner, Director of Talent at Goodby, Silverstein and Partners. He started off at Goodby, Silverstein and Partners in January of the year 2000. And that's what we used to call the year 2000 in the 1900, in the 20th century. We never said 2000, we said the year 2000, because it was such a foreign thought to think that a year wasn't going to start with the word 19 in front of it.
It was so far away.
So it was like, in the year 2000, in the year 2000. But now we just say in 2000, from 2000 to July 2008. So he was there for 8.5 years before departing, heading north to work as a global director of creative recruiting at Wieden & Kennedy. He was there for a year before returning to Goodby, Silverstein and Partners for the first time. He returned back, worked there for 5.5 years before going to be global creative recruiting lead at Google. That is the search engine. I didn't know they had people working for them. I thought it was all a computer.
There's a lot of people. A lot. 120,000.
120,000 people.
Yeah, much different.
You pulled that information in like 0.7 seconds.
I mean, I worked there.
Yeah. He also has been a long time, like I mentioned earlier, board member at the Creative Circus, and we thank you for that very much. And he's been back at Goodby, Silverstein and Partners now for a couple years. So was there three different times for a cumulative total of something like 15 years.
Yeah,
right?
Something like that.
And you're holding up. You don't look like you're old enough to have been working since 2000, but welcome to the school.
Thank you very much. It's great to be here. Thank you very much. I love coming out here.
Why?
I don't know. It's weird. I was thinking about that when I came over. I come here more than any other school, and I try not to have biases to schools, because I think there's a lot of great schools out there, but I've always felt a weird kinship with the school. We've hired so many great people that have come out of here, and I think especially writers, which is a testament to you. Mm-hmm. So I don't know. There's just weird. There's companies and schools that have similar DNA. And for whatever reason, I guess the success rate of students that come out of school for us is just really high. So I love coming out here.
So does Jeff always seem like he's comfortable? Because when he was down here, he just seemed like he was sort of in his element. Is he like that all the time?
Yeah. One of my favorite Jeff stories is...
we're talking about Jeff Goodby.
And I appreciate how you say Goodby, Silverstein and Partners, because Silverstein cares about that a lot, not just Goodby.
And you know what? He should.
Yeah, I know.
This isn't his problem. This is the problem. Yeah. Okay.
Well, so 10 years ago, I was working on a new business pitch with Jeff and Rich, and new business pitches are stressful as hell, and lots of pressure and late hours. And I had a doctor's appointment that I snuck out to for an hour, and in that hour, I got like 3 missed calls from Silverstein. And I run back to the agency, and he's like, "Where the hell have you been? Like, we need you now. This is important." And I'm stressed out and like just feeling the pressure, and feeling kind of bad that I snuck out. And I stick my head in Jeff's office, and Jeff's about to walk in this new business pitch, and he's calmly explaining to his daughter how to make pea soup. Just like not a care in the world, and everyone else is running around the place going crazy, and he's just taking his time out with his daughter. He is always like that.
Yeah, I've told that story at least a half a dozen times. I love that story because when I visited and he and I talked the first time, he took me back into his office to just show me some stuff on the computer about some guy that did these really cool math videos, and God damn, I wish I could be that zen because it's so. And when I say the word zen, I don't mean like calm. I mean someone who is really, really living in the moment and really enjoying what's happening right this minute and not really worried about like tomorrow's meeting or where that person might be. And
him and Dan Wyden are very similar in that way. Yeah, I think they're both very present. I think what it is confidence. I mean, because I've spent so much time with those guys, and I think Jeff is just really confident in himself. So he not arrogant. But he knows he can walk into a room and he's going to do the best he can, and it's going to be good.
That's really cool. Yeah. So explain. And I was confused by this story when you told it to me the first time. The part of it that confused me is what your job was on a new business pitch. So I want you to answer this question in two parts for the listeners. One is explain what your job is at Goodby, Silverstein and Partners, so that we kind of know. Like, obviously, you're like the recruiter, so you look at books and you hire people. But what does that look like? What does that mean? And also, what was your role
when I started
at that pitch situation?
Oh, yeah.
Why were you so important?
I've done so much. I mean, it's weird. I think people like myself who've been in the company for a really long time, sometimes you just end up doing lots of different jobs. So when I first started, I was basically an admin, and so I was an admin for a year, and then moved up into the creative department.
So you changed the I to an A. Yeah, went from an admin to an admin.
Yeah, an admin, and then worked in the creative department for a while, and then realized that really.
What was that role?
I was a young art director.
Okay,
and did a couple years of that, and then actually just really preferred the recruiting side, or was really interested in the recruiting side, and asked to be working in recruiting, which I'll never forget the day that Rich Silverstein pulled me aside and basically told me that he was like, "You are a fucking idiot. If you quit from being a creative to do that," he's like, "you are an idiot." But I knew that that's what I wanted to do. And so...
well, that says something about your talent, I guess, right? And your talent and your sort of work ethics / constitution, your ability to handle that kind of stuff, right? So he was seeing that you were wasting a certain talent.
There's an elitism, right? Like, it's like creative is the top of the top, and being a recruiter is not. And
I think he's right for his own values and his own ambition and his own career trajectory, which is the career he wants to build for himself, right? Yeah, totally. So, I think that, when someone tells you something like that, there's usually a selfish motivation.
Right. Well, also, I think we got along as a creative team. I mean, I worked for him, so we
Did you ever work with him?
Oh yeah,
well, he's an art director.
That's the thing.
Director.
Yeah, but he, the thing that's great about working for Rich is you work with Rich. Mm-hmm. He is so collaborative. He's what I love about him is he's not just sending you emails telling you what to do as like maybe a creative director might normally do. He's a part of it. So if you work on a project that Rich is involved in, you're in his office all day long, working with him. Mm-hmm. So I've just done a lot of things. What I do now. I mean, I am the head of creative recruiting. I'm an associate partner, which means I'm on the kind of the management, the lower level management team. There's a couple partners and there's a couple associate partners.
Do you have a say in the kind of work that the agency pitches and overall sort of personnel and resource management type of things that partners would have?
Occasionally they ask me to chime in on new business, and I'll give my thoughts on it. As far as the personnel, 100%. They're really good about listening to me with that stuff. Yeah, cool. I just take on a lot of roles, and frankly, if I notice anything in the building that no one's paying attention to, usually I'll just raise my hand and say, "Hey, I'd be happy to take that on if needed." So I do a lot of different weird things.
How big is Goodby, Silverstein and Partners?
We're about 300 people.
So you have recruiters for the other places?
Yep.
Other departments?
Yep. We have a woman named Leslie B. who's great, and she does strategy. And then we have a woman named Kristen Lowe who does kind of focuses mostly on account.
Do you ever look at the books of the strategists that come in?
I've hired some strategists over the years. One of my favorite hires of all time was a strategist. Before Leslie was doing strategy, if there was ever a slow time for me, I would happily help out in any department.
Well, that's interesting that you kind of answered the next question, which is how do you become a gatekeeper of the brand and agency? So how tied to sort of the creative director sensibility are you when it comes to looking at portfolios? How have you earned Jeff's and Rich's trust when it comes to evaluating talent coming in? Because on the podcast, the word culture comes up all the time. I talk about it all the time. I'm still not quite sure how to define what that means because it can mean work-life balance. It can mean you let dogs in. It can mean that you have a keg at the end of the day. But it could also mean that you have a certain standard for the type of work that you have and the type of people that are working there. So when I ask about being a gatekeeper of the brand, I'm talking about the Goodby, Silverstein, and Partners brand has a certain type of creative.
Yeah.
Is that could you in your own mind sort of define that and how sort of symbiotic is the relationship that you have with the leadership?
Well,
does that make sense?
It does. It's a good question, and
because I'm assuming recruiters are not like you can just pick one out of here and stick it in there.
So that's a great. I could talk about this forever because I think when you start asking the question, I thought of the recruiters I love and respect out there, and the ones that I really think fondly of instantly. I was like, oh wow, all of these people have really been in those companies for a long time, and they are a huge part of that organization. So, to think you could just go in and out. I think it's hard. I think it's hard because the thing is, I think that we're more like I think of us as a family more than like a company. And so,
why'd you hesitate to say that? Because it sounds like a cliche, or
no, I don't think it sounds cliche. I think that I guess my goals aren't business. I don't have a lot of business goals. If that makes sense. Like that we have a CFO who's making sure that we're profitable, and so he thinks of us as a company. I think in a lot of ways, but my role is really to help shape the family, and I think it's a awesome job, and it's daunting at times, but I think most of the recruiters that I look up to really see themselves as that, and so they're not hitting hiring goals, and they're not you're not checking boxes as
but I'm talking about this. So are you looking for people that fit the family because they would fit in the family photo? This is metaphorical. Yeah. Or are you looking for people that are like a stepchild that doesn't fit but will bring a certain element to the suit?
Well, great. Again, another good question. And actually one of the reasons that I've loved my setup at GSP is because it's not there isn't one leader. So a lot of agencies, it's there's one creative lead or whatever, and so what happens at a lot of those places is they become a certain type of tone, which makes sense. That person is attracted to certain types of work, and Jeff and Rich are very different. They are so different. Then you add in Margaret Johnson, who's totally different from those two. So there is a vast difference in opinions on creative between those three, and that makes my job wonderful because what it allows me to do is not just hire the creatives that Jeff likes, and not just the ones that Rich likes, and not just one Margaret likes. So we have a wide variety of people, and as opposed to one kind of tone or type.
So down the hall from us right now, we have a room full of portfolios for a portfolio review. You could sit there and look at 4 portfolios. Would you kind of have a sense of which one of those 3 would gravitate towards each of those books? Do you have an internal sense of?
Oh, 100%. Yeah. Oh, absolutely. I mean, I know I have a good feeling for what Jeff's going to like, and Rich and Margaret, 100%.
That's very cool. Yeah. And they trust you because they know you from all the everything else.
We've been doing this for a long time together.
Have you been duped?
Oh yeah. Oh my God. I mean, the thing is I believe. I have no crystal ball. I wish I did. No one does. And anyone, there's no way to fully know if someone's going to be great. And so,
I don't think you've hired anybody from here that I was like, oh, really? Since I've been here, I don't think you've hired a dud.
Yeah. I go for home runs. I mean, I am not afraid to strike out, and I'm not afraid to make a terrible hire, because the thing is I'm looking for home runs, and so I try to keep a high batting average, if you will.
There's 2 different things, because that's like I think that home run hitters typically have pretty low batting. They have a lot of strikeouts.
Well, I guess it's a little. I mean,
so batting average is sort of like is more you're going for consistency and sort of just making contact.
I'm not afraid of
you can do both
bad hires, but I am trying to I am trying to take pretty calculated risk, and I'm trying to go for people that like blow me away.
But you've had hires that are like, oh my god, how do you?
I have hired people who I would bet my life savings on, and it didn't work out, and I've hired people that I wasn't super sold on, and they've just completely blown me away.
That's really cool.
Yeah.
Did you know Mark Sobier?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
I just want to say hi, Mark. Hi, Mark. All right, so I had dinner last week with Lionel Carrion.
Yeah.
I know you know Lionel.
Yeah, of course.
So he is, for the listeners that don't know, the Global Director of Creative Recruiting for RGA. And he talked about this phenomenon, and I'm curious to see it from your position. What's the role of people that come in? What's your relationship with them once they start? And have you had people come to you thinking of moving, or have you had people quit without discussing it with you? Like, what's the relationship with you as far as sort of shepherding them once they're through the door?
Right. So obviously, getting them through the door is the first part, but the majority of my job is not hiring. A lot of my job is just the care and feeding and looking after creatives and kind of keeping a temperature for the partners. When I start to feel like things are out of balance, when I start to feel like things aren't feeling good, or if there's discomforts that we could fix, if I start to feel those things happening, then I run to the partners and try to bring solutions. Mm-hmm. So if clients or certain accounts are really wearing people down, I'm the one kind of keeping my eye on that and making sure that we're looking out for people.
That's really interesting. So has it happened where someone you just hear someone's leaving and they're going somewhere that you think is not better?
Yes.
And they didn't talk to you? Like,
I see myself, honestly, the reason I think I'm paid, for half of my job is as a therapist. Mm-hmm. I mean, so they come honest to God, people are on my couch all day long. I was a psych major originally. My mom, dad, stepmom, and stepdad are all shrinks, and that's what I really wanted to do. And in a weird way, I feel like
you're doing
I am. Yeah,
isn't that cool?
Yeah, it is cool. I mean, I basically just I listen to problems a lot, and when people quit and they're going to a place where I think it's a bad move for them, I'll, of course I'll talk to them about it. You kind of have to separate your feelings for the place. I love the place and I want it to do well. And so when someone I really care about is going to leave, it's always painful. Mm-hmm. But if it's a move I think that's bad and it's a little short-sighted, of course I'll talk to him about it.
I think what Lionel was talking about, I'm not going to name names because I don't want to talk about anybody specific. He said that there was a move that said they just come to me and talked about why they weren't happy. We probably could have worked something out. We could have moved them.
This is the biggest thing. I mean, what again, I said before, I don't have a crystal ball and I wish I did. I mean, I think I'm pretty open and people do talk to me a lot, but anyone who's not happy in their job, one of my best friends,
you don't know who hasn't talked to you.
Well, that's true, but one of my best friends, the closest friends in life, is an amazing creative. Amazing, phenomenal creative. He doesn't work at GSP, and he was telling me about his difficulties at work, and he's just for hours just bitching and moaning, and I was like, have you talked to anyone about this there? Right. No, why would I? And I'm like, do you know how much they love you? I bet. I mean, if you're a good employee and you go talk to your employer about like feeling this dissatisfied, immediately they're going to try to solve that problem in a good place. I mean, if someone I care about comes to me and says, I'm really unhappy, my God, like, I want to help you fix that. Like, I don't want you to leave.
That's great.
And my buddy finally went and talked to them, and immediately things changed. And so, yeah, I mean, people who are feeling that way in a company, you got to get out of your office and go chat with people.
It's great. That's great. I think that's good advice.
Yeah. I mean,
I was listening to you, even though I was looking down. You're looking at me like I wasn't listening.
Oh, was
so the listeners didn't see that. So I'm looking down my next question while I was answering. I really heard.
Are you looking at this? Have you seen this?
Yeah. What is that bruise?
I look like a junkie right now. I have a softball-sized bruise in my arm.
Multicolored psychedelic right at the joint of the inside of his arm.
I got my blood drawn.
Yeah, I see that. They missed the first time.
They didn't miss. They just stabbed me, and I ended up with like a golf ball size.
No, I didn't notice it. Yeah. I didn't notice it. Okay, so switching gears.
Yeah.
let's get to the stuff the students and young creatives want to hear about. How do you look at books? I want to talk about just literally, actually, practically.
I've said this to you guys before.
Yeah.
I actually think that you guys should. So today at the circus tomorrow we're going to meet all the students. Today, the recruiters are here looking at the books. And I've actually said this. You should put a camera in that room and let people watch how people watch books, because I think it would really be enlightening to them. I think they would be very surprised.
I did tell them, and tell me if I'm wrong, I told them not to put everything in there. I mean, to put in like your top...
In their books.
Your all-stars. Today. Because your website can be whatever your website is, but this is a book review.
Yeah.
You're not going to look at... I said, trust this number one. They are going to look at your least favorite one first. They're not going to look at the top left one every time.
Right.
So you better not have a least favorite one.
Yeah. How do I look at books? The first thing I do is I look at the About Me.
First thing.
I have a terrible memory. I'm really bad with names and, detrimental with memory.
My name is Dan.
And so the way that I remember things is through like that story about themselves. So,
you're the one that rides horses or whatever.
Well, like I was looking at a book today that you said you like this woman, and I don't remember her name, but
Ashley Bozeman.
She says she likes white rice.
Okay.
So I'll for 10 years from now, I'll remember her as the girl who likes white rice.
Yeah,
so
exactly.
So that's how I remember things. So I go to the About Me section. If there's a photo, I love it, because again, if I can remember that white rice moment and then see a photo, it will be burned in there. So I start there, and then I just go through it pretty fast. I mean, I usually start at the front, and then I will check the last one. Just because I think a lot of people hide their worst work there. But the thing that for students that I would say is, if you're in a band and you're trying to get a record label's attention, you just kind of have to imagine how many records that label's getting every single day. And do you think that they would literally listen to a whole album of every band? Impossible. If you just do the math, it's impossible. Mm-hmm. I probably get 100 portfolios a week. And if each portfolio has 8 different case studies that are 3 minutes, if you just do the math, I won't have time to do anything else.
Like
So
that's 20 a day. Right. 8 times 3 is 25. 25 times 20. No, the math isn't
yeah. So it's impossible. What I do is what I would do if I worked at a record label. You listen to the first song, and if you like the first song, you go to the second song,
right?
And then you keep listening. If I don't like the first song, I quickly skip to the second one. And then
just to see if that was,
exactly. And then even quicker, I go to the third one, and then I'm out. So I always recommend, only put things in there that you're just really, really stoked on.
Are you open-minded when you're looking at a portfolio? Or are you thinking about GSP?
Oh, that's interesting. I don't think about GSP. I don't think about GSP. I think it's too much of my DNA now.
So it's not. You don't have to.
Yeah, I think I just think about what I like, and I'm looking, to be honest, I'm looking at a student level. I'm looking for their motivations. I'm trying to figure out who they are and what their motivations are. And if that comes across to me, then I get interested.
What's the ideal hire? What's the ideal? This is the one I really want to meet them, and I really want them to come in.
I feel something like strongly, usually a little bit of jealousy. And what I mean by that is like, oh, I wish I had done this. I know what you mean. When I was that level, oh my God, I wish I had done that type of thing. That's amazing.
I have 3 Pinterest boards. One's called I Made It, which is where I put stuff I made.
Yeah.
I wish I had made.
Yeah.
And it made me.
Oh, that's cool.
So it made me is the things that inspire me.
Yeah.
I wish I had made it. It's the stuff that makes me jealous.
Yeah.
I'm sharing cool stuff.
Yeah. I like to get I need to have a feeling. I need to have a feeling of the person. And ultimately I like to be able to feel like I understand their motivation, because to me, that's the thing I'm really looking for. Why are you doing this? Are you checking boxes for a resume, for a portfolio? You're a good teacher. They're listening to you. They're taking notes. I should check all these boxes, and that I'm not looking for those boxes checked. I'm looking for the motivations of who they are, what inspires them, and then if I'm really into it, I want to bring them into our company.
Yeah, I secretly wish that more students would go rogue and say, "I don't care that I'm putting this thing." Because
well, here's the thing. Schools. I'd be really curious about the out of all the people you've interviewed, how many of them went to school for advertising? And my God, we've hired so many great people from schools. The danger with going to any school for anything, not just advertising, is in a way, a school can help create more cogs, if that makes sense. And the world doesn't need more cogs in advertising. And, we need problem solvers and we need leaders. And so I'm trying to, I really stay away from the things that I see as just checking the boxes of what they're supposed to do. And I'm looking for who they really are.
I think that's great. And I think that's intimidating if you don't know what that means, but I think it means to kind of approach things with no rails.
Well, this is what you asked me years ago, and I probably didn't articulate it well, but it's like, this is why you're in school. It's actually, people say, what's the point of ad school? And to me, the point of ad school is to learn who you are as a creative.
Yeah, the question was actually posed by Adil Hussein, who's here today.
Oh, okay.
And it was a question that was written in a form, like, what's the most important thing that students can learn while they're in school? And your answer was themselves, right?
It's true. It sounds so cliche, but it's like, honestly, figuring out who you are as a creative and then trying to get that across in a portfolio.
Yeah. So I had a conversation with Rich about the era when agencies were shifting to doing interactive and digital work. And I told him at the time, and I still believe that Goodby, Silverstein & Partners was one of the very few, if not the only agency I can think of that seamlessly moved into conceptual digital executions, apparently from the outside, as if they were always going to do it.
Oh, yeah.
And I said to him, talk about that time. He said, well, we were scared to death. Yeah. We were motivated by fear. Yeah. Is the agency, or do you feel there's any undercurrent of fear of becoming irrelevant in the sort of traditional agency sort of model? Is the model becoming old? Because this question's coming from a lot of really talented people moving in-house, moving into the Googles and the Facebook and all these other big brands that are taking work in-house. Is there a sense in the agency that this is another time of reinvention?
I think you always feel that way. To some degree, you always feel that tension. I mean, to me, the things that I'm always looking for really good problem solvers and great leaders. That's, ultimately I want amazing problem solvers and amazing leaders. And I don't think that'll ever go out of style. I think as long as we keep having great problem solvers, we'll be in business. I think the days of just working hard doesn't get you anywhere anymore. There's too many people who are willing to work incredibly hard, and frankly, in other countries for even way less money. Right. So working, advertising, you work hard. But now, more than ever, it's got to be about that problem solving. So as long as we can offer that to people, I think we'll be in okay shape. But I think in the 18 years I've worked in this industry, there's always been something biting at our feet that scares the shit out of us. Yeah. And I remember, it's interesting that the thing with Rich, I remember the agency meeting. I wasn't in any sort of big position at GSP, so I didn't get to see behind the curtain. I didn't see them scared. But as an employee there, I remember the meeting when Rich got up in front of the agency and said, we are going to, digital is something we're going to focus on. And if you don't want to do it, then you shouldn't work here. And it was a really intense meeting. If you're not interested, if you just want to keep doing what we've been doing, you should leave and go find another job. We'll help you, by the way. If you want to stay and you're scared and you don't know how to do this, we're going to figure this out. We're not just cool. But we're here to do this together, and we're going to help each other. Cool. But if you're not interested in that, you should leave right now. And so I remember that meeting, and that meeting was really scary and inspiring to me. And brave, yeah. Kind of brave. And so as a regular employee at that time, I just thought it was great. But now that I'm in a more senior position, I can imagine to have that type of conversation, to stand in front of your agency and say, you shouldn't be here anymore if you're not interested in this. That is a scary thing for a leader of a company to do. It takes a lot of courage. I got to believe he also had faith in the people in the room that they're sort of like you are, which is like, okay, awesome, let's go now. Well, it's kind of cool to have a leader with a vision. Well, what's interesting about especially Rich is he he is terrified of being irrelevant, I think. And I think that is a healthy fear.
Yes.
So, he's not going to be, if you hired Motley Crue, back in the 80s at a record label, and 20 years later, you're still talking about, 25 years later, you're still talking about, I'm the guy who hired Motley Crue. I think that's Rich's worst nightmare.
Yeah, exactly.
Whereas most people would just be satisfied with that. So, he makes something, and the next day, he's like, that's old. And so his one of his biggest gifts to the agency is that I remember at Cannes, one of our best years ever, we won Global Interactive Agency of the Year, a huge award, and we were at dinner with the team who had worked on it, with all this stuff, and I said to Rich, hey man, like, pulled him aside, so you gotta say something. It's dinner, like, everyone's so stoked, like, give them some sort of speech. And Rich was like, oh, okay. And he sits up in front of everyone and says, what, are we just going to sit here and like, talk about how great we are? Like, everything you just won for, everything you're celebrating right now is a year old.
Yeah, it's from the past.
So what, like, I don't care about that anymore. Right. And it was like it was a little weird, but I was like, oh man, he is so focused on the present. It's incredible.
Also, on solving client problems and talking about what we did last year does not help us solve our clients' problems.
Yeah, it's true.
I mean, it's just not about what we need to do now.
Yeah. So I think, I've been really blessed to work with those guys who are very, that they don't ever get comfortable, and they did something great, but that was for yesterday.
Yeah,
and it's really inspiring. So
in the places you worked, can you talk about differing cultures? Or do they feel similar in ways, and how are they different?
Yeah. Well, we talked a lot about GSP. I mean, I've always said that Dan Wieden and Jeff are very similar to me. I think they're like almost like the mother saints of, like, Mother Teresa's of advertising. They're both really compassionate and sensitive, incredibly smart. So when I first met Dan, he reminded me a lot of Jeff. I think there's a lot of similarities between those two. Culturally, I think that it was very easy to go from GSP to Wieden and back. It was much different going to a good Google. And I think there's just one's an engineering company, and the other two are really creative focused companies. Right. So they're so incredibly different.
Interesting.
Actually, just totally different.
Would you discourage someone from a true pure creative from going to a place like Google when they're younger?
I would discourage anyone who's young to go to Google, and here's why: they serve fucking ice cream.
Yeah.
There's bowling alleys. They'll do your dry cleaning. That is not like not healthy.
Not sustainable
for a 21-year-old.
Right.
Like, you should be doing your own laundry.
Right.
Like, to have ice cream sundaes being served to you at your desk is like, I think that is a great thing to have, and it's wonderful to have that. Yeah. But as a 21-year-old, you should be scrounging through conference rooms looking for old bagels that are left behind, and I think I would probably get too comfortable with those type of.
Do you know why I think? Because you kind of, at that point, despite having done nothing, you've made it.
It feels. I mean, I gotta say, it does feel great working there, and there's amazing people who work there.
No, I'm saying you've made it because of these perks. It's
it's hard to like.
I'm the shit now. I got a paycheck from Google. It's like, not so much.
It's hard to strive. I mean, if you're just being given ice cream sundaes on your first day, man, my God.
I fucking love ice cream sundaes.
Yeah, I mean, also I would gain like 500 pounds if I had stayed there
quickly. All right, so recently, and I don't want to date this recording because this is from the past.
Yeah.
But this came out this morning. This article you wrote in Adweek, and I want to quote a section of it and then ask you about that. So I don't remember the title of the article. Do you remember the title?
Yeah, the title of the article is Jeff Goodby the best copywriter at Goodby, Silverstein and Partners?
Is Jeff Goodby the best copywriter at Goodby, Silverstein and Partners? So for almost 20 years, I've been lucky enough to lead creative recruiting at GS&P and global creative recruiting at Wieden & Kennedy and Google. And the most impressive people I've worked with are rarely the best at any one thing. Instead, they're significantly better than most at a handful of skills, creating a unique combination that no one else possesses, right? So, and then towards the bottom it says, sure, there's some people who do succeed at being the best at one particular field. If you want to be the next Jordan, Einstein, or maybe Matt Damon, go for it. But the chances of your becoming the best at something are pretty slim. It's a big risk to be so specialized, and sadly, it usually only gets people so far in our industry. As Heinlein said, quote, specialization is for insects. Okay, so this is a fascinating thing for me because you'll hear both sides of this. And I want you to clarify what you mean by one thing and various things.
Well, there's a lot of nuance in here. I hope I articulated it well enough. I got nervous that this, people will start burning me for this, and maybe that's my fault if I didn't articulate it well enough. I mean, I think in the world, especially in capitalism, we're rewarded for being the best, being exceptional. You are rewarded in capitalism for being exceptional. Mm-hmm. Being exceptional at one thing is so hard. Mm-hmm. It is so hard. Being a unique combination of things, having a skill set of a couple things that you are really, really great at, that makes you unique, to me is what we look for. So having a unique combination of things that makes you special is less risky to me than being incredibly good at one thing and trying to be, who's the third best swimmer in the world?
Oh yeah, right.
We don't know.
No, we don't know.
We know who the best swimmer is.
So here's a question for you though. All right, so let's say I'm a copywriter, so I'm pretty good.
Yeah.
What's the other thing? Is the other thing art direction, or is the other thing poker?
Yeah. Well, okay, right. So of course, I mean, I'm speaking to advertising, so I'm speaking in skills that relate to advertising.
So presentation skills. So
okay, I mean, Jeff is absolutely a ridiculously talented writer. We all know that, right? Mm-hmm. I mean, I mean, when he's on his top, it's unbeatable. But the thing that makes Jeff so special is a lot of things. He is so charming. You've met him. He is so charming.
Yes.
He's so good with clients. His work ethic is incredible. He has 5 or 6 things that he'd probably in the 95 percentile at.
Right.
And that's what makes him. That's what makes him.
So if I'm not charming, I mean, I don't understand how I'm supposed to, as a 20-something-year-old kid, who's trying so hard just to learn how to be a designer or learn how to write. Mm-hmm. Like, what else can I be? Like, what else? What's the thing? Is it like playing guitar? Is it like
okay? Well, yeah, right. There's lots
stand
of
up.
There's lots of things. I mean, I think the mistake
because everything I've mentioned, playing guitar, stand up. I'm not kidding. I mean, maybe these
are
okay.
So when I maybe in 2006, I've always prided myself on actually trying to find people who aren't in advertising and bringing them in. So people who have unique skills that relate to advertising and then bringing them in.
Those work out for you?
Yeah, and actually some of our best employees,
interesting,
and a lot of our leadership has been those types of people. And I can give some examples. But the mistake that many agencies have made, and I've seen this happen, is I think they took the cue of rebelling against traditions. Oh well, we need to stay relevant, so we can't just keep hiring ad students. So we need to go find. So they hire a barista who's like good at making foam lattes or what I don't and they think he's an artist. So then and so
how does it apply? How does it apply?
Yeah, how does it apply? So John Molansky is one of our creative directors right now, and no advertising background. I saw him perform stand up. Stand up is not enough to get you a job in advertising, right? But what was clear to me was he can write his ass off. Mm-hmm. He's meticulous about every word for the audience attention. Mm-hmm. He was an incredible presenter. He was a great performer.
Sure.
Huge. So there was a lot of elements that came together that and I was like, okay, clients will love him. He can walk into any room, clients will instantly like him. He's obviously a wordsmith. He's he every little word matters. He cares about the audience's time. Short, he got to the point quickly. He was in and out of jokes, So that was the first part of why I started talking to him. Then I looked at his professional experience, and he actually had a lot of writing experience. So there was a lot of reasons.
How did he get to you? How did you?
I found him.
What do you mean? I found him.
I saw him doing stuff in San Francisco in the Bay Area.
Okay.
The second one is a guy named Ralph Payon, who's one of our.
What's the last name?
Ralph Payon.
Okay.
He is a badass, and I love him. I found him at the National Debate Championships in college. So randomly, I was thinking, I was helping out with strategy recruiting, and I know very little about strategy recruiting, but I was asked to help, and my first thought was, well, no one is going to be better at this than like debate champions. Like, let's go to colleges and go to find debate champions. So I flew to Texas, where the National Debate Championship was happening. There's no audience at these things, by the way. I show up, I buy a ticket to a flight. I just show up to this university,
This is insane.
and I'm sitting in like student desks watching these people. Everyone thinks I'm a weirdo because I'm like, who's this random person with a notepad?
So weird.
And you know, I mean, my God, these kids are from a young age have been working very hard at this craft, making concise arguments. They are staying up till 2 a.m, honing their art, researching like crazy. Part of being a good debater is your presence, how you talk, you know, how you present your arguments. It's not just what you're saying. So you know, it was a no-brainer to me. And so I'm sitting in the crowd watching these crazy kids debating things, and Ralph and all of them were very talented. And I mean, this was the National Debate Championship, so they're all good. Right. And Ralph was the head of the Harvard team. So, you know, there was just so many things where I'm like, okay, this is a no-brainer. So when I say...
And Ralph's like, Goodby, what? Is that a headache powder?
What's that?
Do you know what Goodby Silverstein?
No, this, I mean, so I talked to a few kids. Ralph was actually my favorite, and luckily he came. I talked to a lot of kids who were like, advertising? I'm going to go be a lawyer. You're crazy. Right. I've got my life planned out. Right. But Ralph didn't want to become a lawyer. So you're looking
it's really
it's a lot of skill sets, you know. So this article is it's really encouraging, and this was really written for two people. It's written for students. It's written for students who get frustrated when they can't understand why they're not being hired.
I'm worried about it for students a little bit.
Yep.
Because it sounds a little bit like I can come out as an art director / copywriter versus a copywriter / debate champion or / a blogger, I think podcaster or whatever.
Hopefully the takeaway is you want 3 or 4 things that you are in a high percentile of being great at. Mm-hmm. So it's not saying you can't be a good writer if you want to be a copywriter. Right. You need to be in the top percentile. I'm just saying that, you know, I have met people who are the 1 percentile, but they suck at presenting. They're not good with people. They're terrible with feedback. And those people end up jobless.
Right.
And so when people, the second person, you know, group that I wrote this for was for people who feel frustrated maybe if they're being passed up for promotions. Well, why is this team getting promoted? I'm a better writer. And it's like, totally, you actually are a better writer, but they're also really great at listening to teams. They're really great with clients. They're really flexible. There's a lot of these things that go into advertising. And so the frustrated designer who sits at his desk by himself working 24 hours a day on design and then wonders why they're not the design director. Well, there's more to being, great in advertising than just being exceptional at one thing. Right. If you just want to be a great writer, you can have a great career in advertising.
You limit your options.
Right.
I think that people need to not worry about sucking at shit.
At sucking?
Sucking at shit. Because I think that I was a really good copywriter. Yeah. Still am. Yeah. But that was it for a long, long time.
I doubt it.
No, I'm being kind of blunt about the fact that this podcast, I think that I'm pretty good at doing this.
Yeah.
I think I've become decent at this. Right?
You're a great presenter. I see you with students all the time. They follow you around.
Years after I started my career.
You're good at networking.
Years after I started my career, I found this.
Yeah.
And I did it because I had no expectations of it. And my point is that you don't have to feel the pressure as a 23-year-old who's trying to figure out how to write an ad that you have to also be amazing. You have to have an eye at, I'm going to try to do this thing. I'm going to try to do this thing so that you can nurture that field at the same time.
Right.
And as a senior people, do a side project. That designer you're talking about is working 20 hours a day. Yeah. Do something that sucks.
Yeah.
To learn the software.
Right.
To learn how to work a good camera or whatever.
Yeah.
And figure out, make something. I just think people think, and I think this is a case of how easy it is to publish our work now, that we have to make something relevant immediately. And I don't think, this is my own opinion, I don't think you have to make something that's relevant immediately. I think history decides whether it's relevant. Yeah. I'm not even sure this is, honestly, these conversations are. Yeah. Honestly, I'm not being like feigning modesty. I just think this is still kind of like, hasn't really worked yet. Yeah. But it's okay.
Yeah, I mean, again, it's not. I'm not saying. I think the way that maybe to ease anxiety.
Yeah, because okay, so those guys got the promotion because they're better presenters. So what the fuck am I supposed to do because I can't present? So now you kind of identified why I'm not getting my promotion, but that I'm still kind of stuck.
Well, again, I'm not trying to say, especially at a young level, I'm not saying everyone needs to be exceptional at a lot of things. I'm looking for those qualities that will get better, that we can groom and that will slowly grow into. Most students are not going to be a great presenter.
Do you know what else I say to them? I said, do the thing that is in your book that they can tell when they look at your book that no one asked you to do that. That's the thing you did that no one asked you to do.
Yeah, but I think that's right. But I also think, to your point about, you should do the things that scare you. I mean, if you're afraid of presenting, you should face that. I mean, you should videotape yourself.
Right.
Go talk to people and videotape it. Seeing yourself and how you present is very eye opening. So I think you should move towards some of the things that terrify you.
Yeah, there's an analogy. There's an analogous part of yoga for that.
Yeah.
So the poses that are comfortable for you are the ones that aren't the ones you need to be doing. It's the ones that are hurting and are really uncomfortable and you're falling.
Yeah.
They're the ones you need to be practicing.
Yeah. So I mean, I hope this doesn't scare kids. I think it's really to say that like, what are those couple things that you can work on that makes you really stand out and unique? There's tons of good writers. There's tons of good designers. But what combination of things can make you an even better designer?
What's going to make you that white rice person? So, final question. We haven't really talked much about Zach, so I want to ask you your job, your career. What's in it for you? What gets you up in the morning? What's the exciting sort of thing that kind of fires your dopamine?
Yeah. I've always, it's really interesting. I feel like I've ended up where I am. So much luck. There's so much luck, but it is a perfect fit in many ways. I have always been I consider myself creative. I'm not. I consider my friends better than me. Mm-hmm. But I've always surrounded myself with people that I look up to creatively. And so I feel like I always hung out with weirdos and the kind of odd misfits, growing up. And in a way I I felt like my role was to support them. I always felt that. And, really interesting, a little side thing here is, so my uncle wrote all those Chicken Soup for the Soul books. His name's Jack Canfield. And so and I've always I've always been really turned off by that stuff, like New Age spiritualism stuff, and
yoga too. Sorry,
no, and so I've known him my whole life, and so he's always telling me, "Hey, I do these workshops. You should come to one of my workshops." I'm like, I'm never going to this guy's workshop. I don't want to sit there and I don't know, chant or whatever you guys are doing. And for years, other family members have told me, you got to go. You got to check this out sometime. It's actually amazing. He's really good at this stuff. So eventually, I kind of, against my better judgment, went to one of these things, and it was just kind of like trying to tap in what your life's purpose is and all this stuff. Yeah. And I'm very resistant to this thing, but we did this exercise, and we did this exercise about what our role, like what we're here to do, and I realized that, like, I kind of used the analogy that I'm like Robin to Batman, and I really like supporting other people.
That's really cool.
And I realized, and I think I struggled with me wanting, like, should I have the spotlight? Should I work harder so I'm getting all the attention? But I've actually really enjoyed helping other people get to where they are and try to make them better. So the way I got a job at Goodby was I worked in a tattoo shop, and again, it was the example of I knew that this amazing artist, and he was incapable of paying bills and being a grounded person. He was a creative guy with his head's in the clouds. So I was the person making sure everything was getting done, helping market and all that. And then I got my job at Goodby, and it's really been a perfect fit of helping try to support a bunch of weird, wacky, crazy creatives. And so getting out of the bed for me is super easy. I look forward to going to work every day.
That's amazing. I was just thinking about the light of a spotlight versus the indirect warmth of many lights.
Yeah.
It's really cool. Yeah. I feel similar in a lot of ways.
Yeah, it's for me to it's nice to have these good visions around me that I can help support, and to be the person who helps bring in people and see them grow and, you know, go through the hard parts and the highs and the lows, and you know, I love it. So getting out of bed for me, and there was so much luck involved, but getting out of bed for me and going to work every day is really, really easy.
It's great. It's awesome. So listeners, I think you probably can see why I had a brain crush on Zach. I hope so. What's the URL for Goodby, Silverstein & Partners? I should know that.
It's goodbysilverstein.com.
goodbysilverstein.com. Is there a way that the listeners can reach you if they want to?
Yep. My email is Zach_Canfield at gspsf.com.
Zach_Canfield at gspsf.com.
Yep.
If you've listened this far in, you deserve to have his email address. You can reach me, as always, at danspodcast@mac.com. Make sure you like the Facebook page. I'm going to throw some links up there for your reference. Also, every episode's available at balserville.com, where you can go back and listen to the conversations that I had with Jeff, 2 with Jeff Goodby and 1 with Rich Silverstein, and actually 1 with Dan Wyden, too. So you can go back and listen to those at balserville.com or on the iTunes Store. Zach, great to see you again.
Yeah,
Thank you so much.
Yeah, it's about time.
Yeah, listeners, we'll see you again in 2 weeks. Until then, bye.